All right. That's right. Today is, what day is today? Today is Wednesday, June 23rd, 2021. I'm Jarrin Jackson, and I love America. Do the chair, do the stuff, and say the things. Welcome, everybody. My camera is working, and the sound is working. I am a Bible-believing Christian, constitutional defending, patriotic Trump supporter, patriotic Rush Baby Linwood, multiple-time endorsed Trump supporter. Those are my bias. The power of salvation is the gospel of Jesus Christ, the death, the burial, the resurrection. It's good news, folks. It's good news. Let me go ahead and put this up there. That is that. That is that in a meme. You can find more information about me in the links below. Today we're going to be speaking about the military and how it is woke. I actually hate the word woke. I think it's too cliche at this point. Let's be more specific. The military has gone godless commie. It's gone anti-America. And we're going to be listening to Mark Milley, General Mark Milley, whom I served under whenever I was at Fort Hood. So I'm going to be playing a clip, and this is going to take the majority of the live stream. I am going to dissect General Milley's one statement that's making around, and we're going to be talking about that. So with that, I want to demonstrate my credibility. We always get new people. So some people might be like, well, Jarrin, you don't know nothing. You're just a guy with a glorious quantum beard. And that's true. So I want to establish very upfront my credibility. This is me in Afghanistan. That is me in the Rakkasans in the 101st. That is Jarrin without a beard. I am pointing at a IED that just went off. This is me recovering a recoilless rocket. That recoilless rocket killed one of my soldiers. That soldier is memorized here on my bracelet, Andrew Hutchins. I've talked about him before. And then lastly, just to give you a snippet of some of my experience, this is me. I am in the second truck. Just keep your eye on truck number 2. That's right. That's me in number 2. That's right, number 2, and here we go. Kaboosh! Yep, that's me. That was me. And some camera operator, starts to, oh man, it got blown up. Okay, so that's Jarrin and a little bit of my background. Do I have? Yep, I do. On top of that, this is going to be relevant today. This is my West Point class ring. Can you see this? I can't focus. It's not focusing. This is my West Point class ring. So I graduated West Point, top 15% of my class, in 2008. I commissioned as an infantry officer. I've graduated from Ranger School, Airborne School, Air Assault School, Cavalry Leaders Course, basically all the things you would want a combat leader to do, because I was a combat leader. I've commanded soldiers in 2 deployments, 300 soldiers in my second deployment, and 2 platoons as a platoon leader, or 2 platoons as lieutenant, 2 companies as a company commander, and I left the military in 2014, 2015, whenever 9 of my guys were injured in an attack in August of 2014, and the rules of engagement were so restrictive that we were not allowed to return fire. That was in Tactical Base Airborne, a piece of key terrain called Razorback Hill, Razorback Hill is like one of the places where a lot of silver stars have been won. It's in Wardak Province, Maiden Shore, Afghanistan. It's about 20 miles south of Bagram, Afghanistan, 20 miles south of Bath. So I've done it. I've made the moves, met my wife in the military. She was not in the military, but I did all the stuff. I was a military guy for over a decade of my life. Went to West Point, blah, 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 blah. So we're going to be... I throw those accolades out there to say that whenever I'm starting to talk about military stuff, this is like near and dear to my heart. We talk about a lot of different topics on my live stream, but this one, the military, that's like... It's like, okay, I have opinions on everything. I have, well-formed, sometimes not well-formed opinions on everything. I have very well-formed opinions on the military. This is my wheelhouse. The military is my wheelhouse. And I just saw a 4-star general say some things that I think are disingenuous, I think are misleading, I think are either naive or purposefully obfuscating of what's going on. So he's either negligent or he's filling the role of trying to get money and trying not to be blacklisted through the godless commies and the politicians. We'll get into that in here in a little bit too when we start talking about stuff. But phase 1 is going to be a big fat is the military woke? And the answer is yes, sadly. Before that, I'd like to start doing some laughs. If you want to talk about laughs, we want to prime things the right way. So let's roll the rockin' to get to some laughs. You ever wonder what President Trump did before he became president? Someone at one of his hotels was able to catch President Trump on video while he was in a hurry. Watch this.
What car is this? Whose is it? I like this car. Is this your car?
Yes.
Well, you know what? I'm buying it. I need it fast. I'm buying it.
You're buying my car?
Here's a check. Thanks.
Oh my God. Wow. Well, just let me get my kids out of the back.
Now, wait a minute. I don't have time for this. These are your kids?
Yeah.
I'm buying them too. I'm buying your kids too. Wow. Good to see you, Rose. Buy me.
Bye, guys.
What car is this?
It's so funny. I love President Trump. He's got such great charisma. He's such a lovable guy. So I think that's funny. That's why I played it. I think it's funny. I get a lot of different videos from a lot of different people, and I like to play the ones that just stand out and make me laugh. Let's roll the rock and let's get to the update. We got a few things leading into our phase 1 military. All right, so there was a school board that met, and they left in protest because so many God-fearing, patriotic parents who don't want their kids to learn garbage came and started pushing back against them. And so, in response to that, they left. Well, when the school board left, the crowd broke out in singing of the national anthem. Watch this. I don't have it clipped, but a few people have texted me or sent me information about the Arizona State Legislature and how they're going to adjourn. And the idea is that people are going to, the Arizona audits won't have any effect. Basically, if the Arizona audits are going on and the Arizona State Legislature adjourns, then they can't do anything about that, about those audits. They won't do anything. So I decided to text fellow patriot and, observer of the Jarrin Jackson live stream podcast. So thank you, Miss Wendy. I got back this from a state senator who I have highlighted in the Arizona State Senate, Miss Wendy Rogers. She said, she texted me first. I said, "You guys going to adjourn before the audit's revealed?" That's what I said. Quote, This is from Senate President Karen Fan. Quote, if the legislature ends a session sine die, which looks like S-I-N-E-D-I-E, sine die, which just means indefinitely. Without end is all that means. It's Latin. It will not impact any effort by the Senate to investigate potential findings of fraud or irregularities. So there you go. The Senate's going to continue to investigate the potential findings of fraud or irregularities. The Senate President and Judiciary Chair will still call public hearings and subpoena witnesses when appropriate. So they're still going to do stuff. In addition, if the legislature were to recess, British, instead of sine die, indefinite dismissal and ending of the session, there would be a negative impact people aren't talking about. And this is where they start to shift into like all the good stuff that we've done. All the quality legislation we have passed this year cannot take effect until 90 days after sine die, the indefinite dismissal or end of the session. Important legislation such as stuff to clean up early voting, stuff to block early ballots being counted if they don't have a signature, or other stuff which ensures early ballots go to the current addresses would all sit on hold. So if the session ends and they adjourn, then the bills that they've passed won't take effect until 90 days after they adjourn. And those bills are all policing up the loose election laws in Arizona. The audit results may not be finalized for a few more months due to the continued litigation from the Board of Supervisors and Democrats. While it may seem like a good idea to delay the end of the session until the audit is complete, the consequences of postponing good legislation would be more detrimental. So, in Senate President Karen Fann's eyes, her focus is more on passing legislation to, just tighten up the loose election laws. I disagree with Karen Fann. I think the important thing is to get the audit there going because, as we now know, fraud vitiates everything. Vitiates means to undo. It abolishes. It renders, a contract ineffective. It's over. So if there's fraud, it's all gone. So I texted back, so the decision hasn't been made yet, or have these, or it has, and these are the implications. Thanks for getting back to me. Quote, it won't be for a few days yet. And I said thanks. So the decision to postpone the Arizona state legislature has not been made yet. They're thinking about it. They might do it. They probably will, because if the godless commies got a hold of them, then they probably will. But it has not been made yet. So for those people who are bringing up to me the fact that they've adjourned, they have not. They also have not made that decision for a few more days. So if you are in Arizona, get on the phone, call your folks. If you're not on Arizona, call the folks and act like you're from Arizona. Hey, I got a Pennsylvania area code, but I'm definitely from Phoenix. All right, so there's that. This next one, I'm going to play two clips, and neither one of these are appropriate for children. Okay? So this is about your 10 to 15 second heads up, and one of them I couldn't clip the language. The second video I couldn't clip the language. The first one talks about like specific acts. So I've got a 10-year-old in the room, so I'm not going to play the audio on my side. So if the wife is watching, don't worry, Lloyd can't hear what I'm about to play. So that was way more than 15 seconds. I warned you. Here's the thing that's going on. These godless commies are coming for the innocence of children. Now, why is that? Children's innocence they're innocent. They don't have a way of looking at reality yet that is firm, backed by experience, informed through wisdom. They're just a tabula rasa, blank slate. It's Latin for blank slate. They're a blank slate. And so the earlier that you can invade these children's innocence, from a godless commie perspective, the more effective they'll be. If you can, mold them early or get at them early, you can dominate their lives moving forward. And so, this is what the godless commies have done. They've invaded schools. Schools are the front lines. It's why whenever I, advance live local, it's speech schools or speech sheriffs schools shops. Schools are a battlefield. They are a battleground, as you're about to see. Here is a mom. You've had way more than 15 seconds heads up. Here is a mom speaking about a book that people are wanting to give 5-year-olds. It's already in the school to 10-year-olds. So 10-year-olds are getting this book at her public school. But now they want to bump it all the way back down to kindergarten. I'm warning you. This is where our culture is. And if you don't have the ability to hear this, see this, and engage this, you're probably watching the wrong live stream. You're probably not, where you need to be. So with that, here it is.
Hey guys, Joy here. Just wanted to show you my new favorite book that's being taught in schools for sex ed for kids that are ages 10 and up, and is now on a bill proposed to be taught to 5-year-olds. So the first illustration I came across was this adorable girl bent over completely naked with her anus showing and her chest dangling down. So if you wanted to know what that looks like, there you go. Let's see, what else? Oh, it has good illustrations on how boys and girls can masturbate. Like what objects feel the best and the best time to do it and that sort of thing. And then it also shows you how to have intercourse between men and women, men and men, and women and women. And there's a detailed paragraph here about how to make that all work as far as rhythm and making things feel good and whatnot. So I just thought parents...
Yeah, so that is common. That's going on. And for those of us in Oklahoma, it was like 3 or 4 years ago, up in Delaware County, northeast of me, they were teaching those same type of techniques to 6th graders. 6th graders. They have to go for the innocence of people. They have to go for the innocence of children, because what they're doing is so depraved and so evil. If you get to these kids before they have the ability to articulate or categorize what they're being invaded by, they don't have any defenses. So you're corrupting a mind. You're setting them on a path towards lust and fornication and sexual indulgence moving forward. So you're enslaving them to sexual indulgence and the flesh. That's really what that is. Don't think for a second that sexual indulgence isn't a form of political control. If you can get people addicted to porn or other things, then you can control them, because that's what they're going to be focused on. They won't want to do anything else. All they want to do is, how can we go achieve climax other places? It's difficult to talk about it with a 10-year-old in the room. So that's one of the things that's going on. So there's that. Now you take that. That's one aspect. It's the lust. It's the fornication. It's the liking of the flesh. And then it's this other side, where it's what you're actually teaching. And this is going to get into phase 1 when we start talking about the military. This is a Texas teacher. Governor Abbott in Texas signed a law saying that you cannot teach critical race theory in public schools. This video includes bad language, so there's your warning. But this is a teacher broadcasting live that she's going to basically disobey. Watch this.
So it's bullshit. Today is the first time our country has recognized Juneteenth. It's a national holiday, and yet I'm getting ready to go back to school in the fall, and my governor has put into place some ridiculous legislation that many governors across the country have put into place, such as I can't teach anything divisive, I can't teach critical race theory, and I can't teach about racial equity. This is at all public schools, colleges, and universities. So, teachers, in the past, we've been activists. After this shit show of last year, we really need to stand up and do what's right for our kids right now. So this is a call to action, teachers. We got to stand up and fight for our kids, because this is bullshit. We can't lie to them.
Yeah, so I love the fact that she says we can't lie to them. This is a depraved mind. This is a mind that's just completely lost. This is a mind that has been so hardened by hatred for other people, and hatred for the ways that other people look, that she can't comprehend the alternative perspective. We didn't just get here overnight. And that's why whenever I try to advance live local, understand that that's actually the strategy to fight back. Preaching the gospel, get a Second Amendment constitutional defending sheriff, getting that garbage out of the school so that the next generation doesn't grow up porn addicted and hating people based on their God's creativity instead of, people's different skin colors. And then lastly, make sure you shorten your supply chains. Like, those are the things that you can do right meow to push back against that type of thinking. But you don't win arguments against these people. You don't argue with these people. You just defeat them. You just defeat them. There's no reasoning with that mind. And she's a teacher. She's a teacher. What gives her the authority to teach? A degree? A piece of paper? Clearly, anyone, bless you, anyone can just get a piece of paper. I've got a PhD in stuffology from Harvard, by the way. So I am Dr. Jarrin Jackson. If you're ever going to argue with me, you better call me doctor. So with that, what's she going to teach? They're coming after children because that's how they've been able to succeed. And for the longest time, and this is a criticism of conservatives, we are reserved in nature. We just want to live and let live. We want to conserve God's order, which is what we conserve, by the way. Anyone says they're conservative, what do you mean by conservative? We conserve God's order. Well, how do you know God's order? Well, we read the Bible. The Bible tells us that one man, one woman makes a marriage. That's where you get kids. There's a father, there's a mother. Every child has a right to a mom and a dad. Not a mom and a mom, not a dad and a dad. Now, when life happens and the dad dies or the mom dies or orphans or whatnot, that's the role of the church to insert itself. That's where other believers, other people who love Jesus, come in and say, that's a bad situation. We need to provide love and go out of our way to love that person. The book of James, James is Jesus' earthly brother and his apostle. He was the leader of the church in Jerusalem. James says there's no more perfect worship than this, to take care of orphans and widows. So whenever you're taking care of the people in society that society has cast asunder, that's 2 live streams in a row that I've used asunder, by the way. Whenever you take care of those types of people, you're doing that not just to, benefit yourself, because there is a lot of benefit there. You understand how good you have it, how much God has blessed you. But whenever you do that, what you're doing is providing a good foundation that the sinful world has robbed from those people. If a sinful world full of cancer and violence and death and murder and COVID and bad vaccines, if all this stuff happens and it deprives people of what God has intended for them or what God has designed, then the role of the church steps up to say, hey, let us love you in the place that the world has harmed you. That's the mechanism that the church needs to be, and it needs to be very responsive to that, very proactive. But it hasn't been. What we've done is we've imported the schools. We put people like that. Now, I'm not against nose rings. I'm not going to get a nose ring. But it could be a tell that if you're in that position, it's like, okay, maybe teach the kids something that's concrete instead of trying to go off the beaten path. Nothing against nose rings, people. I'm not one of those guys. I don't really care. I wouldn't do it because I'm scared. I don't have any piercings, by the way. That's why I don't have tattoos, because I'm scared. I'm scared of needles. Like, I have, what's it called? It's a vasovapor response. Vasovapor. It's something. It's some type of response. It's like, it's psychological. Based on what I did and what I saw, whenever I see needles and where a needle gets, it's just like, oh, I pass out, man. I pass out. Like, every single time I get blood, I tell people, just elevate my feet. Elevate my feet, and I can't look at it. So I look away and I elevate my feet. And I'm over here going, man, when I get old, Lord willing, and I have to go to the hospital for, like, health stuff or whatever, man, I don't like needles. I don't like needles. Jarrin, but you were supposed to do combat lifesaver class. Yeah, I did. And I pushed through it. It was really bad. I don't like it. I don't like it. But this woman, she's in a position. They're coming after people's minds. They're coming after the innocence of people because it's a lower hurdle to overcome. If they've never been taught what right is, teaching them that right is to hate people based on their skin color, or teaching them that right is sexual indulgence and depravity and fornication, then they'll grow up believing that's the case. And that's why we have millennials, my generation and the generation after me. Many of them are so focused on this warped sense of truth, this deceit. They're so focused on what is wrong that they've got no mechanisms, they've got no critical thinking in order to recognize that they're not on the right track. So it's really interesting. Another part of the update And this is from Christians for Truth, as though Christians would not be from truth. Pfizer confirms COVID-vaccinated people can shed spike proteins and harm the unvaccinated. Now, this is from a ways back. This is May 4, but I want to point it out because it's like it's a thing. It's a thing. This article goes on to say this. It's a new study. Talks about shedding excessive spike proteins. Now, I'm not a doctor, even though I am a doctorate in stuffology. This pull quote talks about this. I don't know how to make sense of this. Again, I'm not a doctor, so I don't know all the stuff. But here's what this is saying. This is basically saying whenever you take this Pfizer Daisy, stuff's going to happen to you. It's going to be neurological because the stuff that you get put inside of you as a result of the Daisy is able to go through the blood-brain barrier, which is this place where the body protects the brain. Don't come inside the brain, you're going to mess it up. You can find more information there. This is the actual paper. They've published this stuff. This was published a long time ago, talking about all sorts of stuff in their specific Daisies. And it includes all of this stuff. All of that right there are direct quotes from their own publications. Their own publications. Now, why is this part of the update? Because if everyone's acknowledging that there's a lot of problems, if everyone's acknowledging that there's things that are wrong with the Daisy that aren't wrong with anything else, you have to think about this. And let me circle back, Jen Psaki, to this issue of why Trump supported Operation Warp Speed. And this is a big question for me. And I'm not completely certain of anything because I don't have sources. If you were President Trump and you signed the executive order 13848 that elevated elections to critical infrastructure, and you knew somehow that because they knew that they're rigging elections, you knew that that was going to be the case. And then they insert this virus when I've played clips where people have said that they've predicted. Obama predicted that there was going to be an outbreak in 5 years in 2015. Fauci said that the challenge for Trump's incoming presidency would be a surprise outbreak. So people knew that there was going to be something that resulted in Trump's presidency. Well, what these godless commies did was they played the bioengineered, funded by U.S. taxpayer, that achieved gain of function. Gain of function just means they wanted to make this thing more transmissible amongst people, which, why would you want to do that? Doesn't that violate what the Nazis were punished for in Nuremberg? Anyway, this whole thing's going on, and that process, British, normally takes 8 to 9 years. Well, if you're Klaus Schwab, Luciferian, and you want to bring about a new world order, how do you do it? You steal the election, you install Hillary Clinton, and then over her 8 years of presidency, you throw in there a virus that is so deadly, even though 99.9999997 people don't die from it, if your age is 0 to 18 or 18 to 25. And it's a lot lower than that. It's like 99.7 if you're older than that. You introduce this virus that doesn't really kill people, but you tell people it kills people. You fudge the numbers. You put on birth certificates that it kills people. You get everyone so afraid that they'll do whatever they want. I mean, how many? Oh, remember the song of that guy who will probably never have a wife, or a catamite. And whenever he's sitting here and he goes, "Dr. Fauci, give us vaccines. We will take it to help us disease." There's that. It stands in my mind. People clamor for this stuff. I played Ariana Grande. I got a YouTube strike for it, by the way, because I played the Ariana Grande clip. Her and James Corden did this like sing-song dance routine where they're like celebrating the fact that they can get a Daisy and be free again. So all of this stuff is going on. And there's studies telling you that it's messed up. So I think Trump looks at this. He ain't dumb. He looks at this and he's like, I'm in a bad spot because they unleashed this bioengineered virus during an election year so that they could stuff ballots, mail-in voting, all that type of stuff. And he looks at that and he goes, well, what am I supposed to do here? I think, and I can't prove this is just my belief. I can't prove it, but I think it fits. Because my bias is that I support Trump and my bias is that I don't think Trump is a bad guy. Insofar as he's trying to overthrow the United States. He needs Jesus like everybody else. But I think that he looked at this and he said, well, I'm going to call their bluff and I'm going to force the FDA to emergency authorize funding for these quick vaccines that they already had developed, by the way. Like, they already existed. And so in 9 months, instead of 9 years, he was able to get the vaccine out in his presidency and distribute it. So he supports it insofar as he has to have people believe that the vaccines work. And if that's the case, the godless commies can't come back and say, well, it didn't work. We got to go back to the drawing board. Because the godless commies wanted to Klaus Schwab the thing. They wanted the Great Reset to be done under Hillary Clinton's watch. She was going to provide the coup de grace, which is the death blow. She wanted to provide the coup de grace to America, and they were going to use prolonged, lockdowns to destroy mom and pop shops, to make people dependent upon their supply chains, make people do things remotely, include and integrate artificial intelligence and robotics and basically technology in order to replace people as workers, get people to change their diets. I have, where is this thing? Do I have it? I didn't clip it. Did I clip it? Yeah, I did. Okay, watch this. Tucker Carlson highlighted this guy last night. This is satanic, people, but this is the type of stuff that they've been talking about. This video is from 2015.
Two examples. So one is that people eat too much meat, right? And if they were to cut down on their consumption on meat, then it would actually really help the planet. But people are not willing to give up meat. Yeah, some people will be willing to, but other people, they may be willing to, but they have a weakness of will. They say, wow, this steak is just too juicy. I can't do it. I'm one of those, by the way. So, so here's the thought, right? So it turns out that we know a lot about, we have these intolerance to, for example, I have milk intolerance, and some people are intolerant to crayfish. So possibly we can use human engineering to make it the case that we're intolerant to certain kinds of meat, to certain kinds of bovine proteins. And there's actually analogs of this in life. There's this thing called the Lone Star tick, where if it bites you, you'll become allergic to meat. I can sort of describe the mechanism. So that's something that we can do through human engineering. We can kind of possibly address really big world problems through human engineering.
Human engineering. Tucker had good commentary. He didn't do it, as long as I'll do it, but he was basically saying humans aren't something to be engineered. But if you're a Luciferian and you believe that so evolution isn't just about where we come from. Evolution's also about where we're going to. If you believe in evolution, then you don't believe in God, and you're going to go to hell because you don't believe the gospel. But also that you believe that you're going to evolve into a higher being, into a next state of consciousness, or the next dimension. All these people talking about fourth and fifth dimensions, this crap. It's not in the Bible, folks. It's Gnosticism wrapped up in a utopian promise. We're going to keep secret knowledge away from you, so you have to come to the people who know it. And then the people who know it are always going to distribute it as though, hey, if you do this, you'll have unfettered prosperity. This is a lie. This is materialism. This is the love of the world. But that's been actuated into stuff like this, because if these people believe in evolution, not only do they not believe in God, they don't believe in Jesus, and so where do they get their values from? Based on what authority do they have a worldview that tells them that it's justified to compel us to have a tick bite so that I don't want to eat steak anymore? They just don't care. As we're doing this, they think that they can engineer humans. They think that they can guide the next phase of evolution. That's why putting your consciousness into the cloud and making yourself immortal is something that Klaus Schwab has talked about. This is transhumanism. They're wanting to augment the human body. In fact, the gain of function research that was done in the Wuhan, funded by U.S. taxpayers at the discretion of Dr. Anthony Fauci, it used human-like mice, like mice that had grafted human genes in them. Now, you might think, why do they want human mice? Why do they have human mice? They have human mice so that they can better understand how stuff's going to affect humans. Because unless they got humans to do stuff with, like they did during the Holocaust, like they do under the Three Gorges Dam in China, unless they've got stuff like this going on, how do they know? How do you know how it's going to respond? So you just, insert some human genetics, some human DNA into these mice, and then you do stuff on them. And then now you know how it will better affect humans because of this. That's what they do. That's what gain-of-function research is all about. Anyway, the point that I'm making is that President Trump is looking at all this stuff. This is a long point. President Trump's looking at all this stuff and going, I'm going to speed up their timetable because the FDA won't support something that is that didn't go through trials. And if you're taking the Daisy right now, you are the trial. You are the trial. And we're seeing that it's not good. We're seeing thrombosis. We're seeing tachycardia. We're seeing all sorts of other issues as a result of the Daisy. Why? Because this report says it's going to do stuff. This report says it's going to be bad. That's why. I think another part of the update, last part we'll say, is Biden's going to come after the guns. Breitbart says today, President Biden's Second Amendment had limits from day one. Pull quote. He said, you couldn't buy a cannon. The founder said you couldn't buy a cannon. Those who say the blood of patriots and all that stuff, the thing about how we're going to have to move against the government. Well, the tree of liberty is not watered with the blood of patriots. If you think you need to have weapons to take on the government, you need F-15s and maybe some nuclear weapons. Yeah, amen. Let me have those too. let me have those too. I will take those. Yes. Is that, is he arguing that we're not sufficient to take on the government without those weapons? And if that's the case, if the pretense or the subtext of the Second Amendment is to keep a check, have the people to be a check on the government, well then by Joe Biden's own admission, only the firearms that we have, the racist, bigoted AR-15s, if those aren't enough to take on the government, but the founders gave us the Second Amendment so that we could keep the government in check. Remember, the Declaration says you can abolish tyrannical governments. So if we, as we the people, can't accomplish that mission, that God-given right to abolish tyrannical government that's enshrined in the Second Amendment, if we can't do that according to the President of the United States, we're going to need some F-15s and some nuclear weapons. Is he going to step up to the plate and be consistent and allow us to do that? Or does he have an arbitrary and misreading of the Constitution where he has an ahistorical perspective, where he wants we the people to be the little people, where he doesn't really want us to have the power. He wants us to have the delusion of power, the chaos of choice, the what's it called, the facade of choice. I think that's what he's getting at when he has mental function. But dear leader, godless commie Joe Biden, making us pray facing to the east and taking our guns while we're doing so. So I just say that's the case. More information on ammo, folks. I am working hard to get that going. I'm not a computer guy. I'm working with people in this audience. I'm trusting to do the websites, to do the credit card processors. I don't know how to do any of that stuff, and I don't know where to go to do that stuff, but I've got people who are helping me to do that stuff, and they've got jobs, and they're volunteering to do this for me, so thank you to the audience. We will get this up and going. We will do subscriptions, and the only way I'll push that information out is either on this live stream or my Telegram channel. So you need to follow me there, and you need to watch this live stream. So more information to follow. We're not there yet. I have not ever said pricing. I have not set out how I'm going to do stuff. I understand people want it. It's only going to be 9 mil because that's all the machines I got. That's all I got right now. I will graduate into other things. I've talked about this before. But yes, the Second Amendment is under assault. I decided to do something instead of just say the Second Amendment's under assault. I decided to say, you know what? I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, and I'm going to try to grow a business that I'm not going to take any money from. You heard me right. I'm not going to pocket any cash until this thing's like a multi-billion-dollar business. At which point, I'm sure you all would say, okay, Jarrin, you can have money in your pocket after 4 or 5 years of growing it. But that's how normal businesses are. Like if you bootstrap something, you shouldn't see a profit. You shouldn't expect to see a profit for 2, 3, 4 years. And that's the same way here. This is not a Jarrin get rich quick scheme. This is a Jarrin sees the Second Amendment being undermined. These godless commies are coming for its jugular. And we need to do things in an organized and deliberate fashion to get people their ammunition so that they can have target practice, so they're proficient with their firearms, such that if the Second Amendment were ever needed, people are going to be able to do what they need to do. All right, let's roll the rock. Let's get to the military. I think I'm worked up enough. Breitbart article says today, Pentagon leader, accusations of military being woke are, quote, offensive. Defends studying critical race theory. Let's listen to General Mark Milley in his own words at a Senate hearing on Capitol Hill.
Sure. First of all, on the issue of critical race theory, et cetera, I'll obviously have to get much smarter on whatever the theory is. But I do think it's important, actually, for those of us in uniform to be open-minded and be widely read. And the United States Military Academy is a university. And it is important that we train and we understand. And I want to understand white rage, and I'm white, and I want to understand it. So what is it that caused thousands of people to assault this building and try to overturn the Constitution of the United States of America? What caused that? I want to find that out. I want to maintain an open mind here, and I do want to analyze it. It's important that we understand that because our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Guardians, they come from the American people. So it is important that the leaders, now and in the future, do understand it. I've read Mao Zedong. I've read Karl Marx. I've read Lenin. That doesn't make me a communist. So what is wrong with understanding, having some situational understanding about the country for which we are here to defend? And I personally find it offensive that we are accusing the United States military, our general officers, our commissioned, non-commissioned officers, of being, quote, woke or something else because we're studying some theories that are out there. That was started at Harvard Law School years ago, and it proposed that there were laws in the United States, antebellum laws prior to the Civil War, that led to a power differential with African Americans that were 3/4 of a human being when this country was formed. And then we had a Civil War and Emancipation Proclamation to change it. And we brought it up to the Civil Rights Act in 1964. It took another 100 years to change that. So look I do want to know. And I respect your service, and you and I are both Green Berets. But I want to know. And it matters to our military and the discipline and cohesion of this military. And I thank you for the opportunity to make a comment on that.
Thank you, General.
Yeah, he's full of crap. He is so wrong. He is so full of crap. He is. Hold on, let me station this. Let me do this again. Hold on. Let me do this. So we'll pause this. We'll get going. Okay. We'll get right there. Nope. All right, good. Okay. What I'm going to do is we're going to just roll through this. A couple things. Because he made a couple points. I took notes as he was doing this. He made a couple points that I completely disagree with. Again, this is General Mark A. Milley. He's a career officer, West Point graduate, 4-star general. There you go. He is the top dog in the military. So he represents all the branches that are there. And so he's speaking on behalf of them. My first thought as I do this is the frame. The frame is, if you're a general officer, you're not really leading soldiers anymore. You're leading the institution. You don't actually have one-on-one, day-to-day contact with soldiers that actually do stuff. And whenever I say soldiers, cross-apply for Navy and Marines and sailors and airmen and all the other stuff. I was in the Army. That's where my language is going to be biased against. But when I say soldiers, I mean everybody. If you are a general officer, especially a 4-star level, you are so far echelons above reality that you're not actually with people that are actually doing stuff. So you are guiding the institution. And it is a sad commentary that the military-industrial complex has made it to where our general officers are just as political. Military officers are political. I was a senior captain whenever I got out. That's a very political job. Very political, even whenever I was a company commander in Afghanistan. Why? You deal with multinational forces. You deal with local forces, the host nation forces like the Afghan security forces, their police, their army, all this other kind of stuff. You deal with other countries, the Dutch, the French, the Germans, the Poles. You talk to all sorts of people from all sorts of places. And that's what I did as a captain. I also spoke to people from all sorts of different agencies like FLOR or multinational corporations. You've got these billion-dollar companies that seek out government contracts to foot the bill in order for the Pentagon not to deploy a bunch of soldiers to a combat area. It basically farms out responsibilities like KBR building huts and hooches for us to live in. You've got Floor, who's kind of fabricating the same type of things. You've got people running the chow, running the food, all that kind of stuff. You have these big mega billion-dollar companies, international companies, which are heavily invested / owned by members of Congress, by the way. You've got these large defense contracting companies that go to DOD and win contracts. Well, these contracts are worth tons of money, and then they go overseas, and so you're not just there. It ain't just you in a uniform, fighting for your country. It's all the other countries that are there with us, and all these civilian contractors that are fulfilling some type of function that the U.S. taxpayer is paying them 3 times as much as it would cost a soldier to do it. But the American people, the thinking goes, could not stomach a number of military in Afghanistan being like 1 million. So what do? They keep it to 120,000 personnel, but then they farm it out and pay for the other 900,000. Well, those are just civilian contractors, and we don't really tell you those numbers. So functionally, you've got 1 million people in Afghanistan, but you're paying, you only have 100,000 in the uniforms. And what's interesting is because the civilian job is a contractor gig, you can actually get paid more as a civilian contractor than you do as a member of the Department of Defense. How many soldiers did I have that would get out of the military and go through a revolving door? No hate to them. They're just trying to make some scratch. They would go through the revolving door, although the higher level you get, the more vicious it becomes. They go through this revolving door and they come right back and they just do 12-hour guard shift in towers. They don't do anything except for work out and eat your food line. But they get their tats and their beards and they do all the lifting of the weights and stuff, but they get paid 6 figures. Whereas my guys wearing the uniform, actually in the oath of office, in the chain of command, get paid pittance. It's garbage. And if I'm ranting, it's because I'm going to rant. But Millie's making a couple points that I completely disagree with. So we'll roll through them. I'll pause it as we go, and I will address as he's talking about. The reason why I'm doing this is because I think that whenever people hear folks talk about, whenever people see a uniform, patriots, Christians, America lovers, constitutional defenders, when we see the uniform, we respect it. That is starting, in my view, to go down because the military as an institution is corrupt. The military as an institution for the last 15 years has been preaching counterinsurgency, has been preaching police actions for long stability, for low intensity conflicts. We aren't fighting anybody that's actually a threat to the United States. Like, America's sovereignty is not at risk from people in Afghanistan, from people in Syria, from people in Iran. Our sovereignty is not threatened by countries in the Middle East. It's not. It's just not. Like, no country in the Middle East is, we're going to go over and kick America. No, bring it. You got all these Peckerwoods in the hills, people like me that, well, I have replicas. I have no real firearms, no real bullets. But there's a lot of people who do. And there's millions of veterans who are out that would be like just relishing the opportunity for the red hordes to come into California. Let them chew up California for a little bit, unless you're in the Jarrin Jackson live stream audience, in which we'll defend your rights to exist and be an American. But most of California, like Los Angeles, they went down boldly. The idea that I'm getting at is when the military has been used for the last 10, 15, 20 years, it's been for policing actions, growing the governance capacity, nation building. It's been nation building. And nation building is not critical to America's sovereignty. Building out Iraq or Afghanistan or Syria or Egypt or Lebanon or Libya or Iran doesn't matter to the United States. Vietnam did not matter to America's sovereignty. We have a military-industrial complex that makes a lot of money, and it brings these things like a dog brings a dead cat or a cat brings a dead bird to the doorstep and just dumps it right there and says, look, bad guys, don't we need to go kill those guys? They're terrorists. They cut people's heads off. Don't we need to send 100,000 people to go stop them? justification for war is not a conversation that Americans have had. Okay, let's get going. I do want to say that on the DoD website, this is the DoD website, their mission, the mission of the Department of Defense is this, way up there at the top. The mission of the Department of Defense is to provide the military forces needed to deter war and to protect the security of our country. The department's headquarters is at the Pentagon. We're going to put that right there. We're just going to keep that as a reminder, because as the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, General Milley is charged with fulfilling that mission. He's charged with the mission. Again, the mission of the Department of Defense is to provide the military forces needed to deter war and then protect the security of our country. Okay, so let's go. General Milley, what you got? Where are you at? Let's go.
Sure. First of all, on the issue of critical race theory, et cetera, I'll obviously have to get much smarter on whatever the theory is.
First, acknowledging that he doesn't understand what the theory is, he has to get smarter. So if he's about to say that he's going to be offended, he's offended by people calling him woke, but he, by his own admission right there, he doesn't fully understand the theory. Now, you could say, devil's advocate, Jarrin, when do you fully understand a theory? And that's a good point. But shouldn't you at least know the gist of it? I mean, the man is about to appeal to Marx and Lenin. He's about to appeal to Mao. And he's about to say that I learned from those people and I'm not a communist. I think that's a category error. We'll figure out, we'll go there here in a little bit. But he just said, you know, we all kind of got to get smarter on what this theory is. Why? Why? Sir, your mission of the Department of Defense is to provide the military forces needed to deter war and protect the security of our country. How does critical race theory provide the military forces needed to deter war? Do our military forces learning critical race theory deter war? I think that's a non sequitur. I don't think those two things are attached. Could you please, four-star general who've served longer in the military than I've been alive, please tell us the rationale for how critical race theory impacts the deterrence of war? Who are we deterring by learning this warfare? Well, Jarrin, well, he actually says it. We'll get to that later. Or protect the security of our country. The security of our country, the lawlessness, the instability that I see through Black Lives Matter, which is a subset of the critical race godless commie theory. Maybe we need to learn how to defeat those guys. Amen. And if that's what your point is, okay, General Milley, I got you. But I don't think that's his point. Let's keep going.
But I do think it's important, actually, for
That's a judgment. Okay, that's his judgment.
for those of us in uniform to be open-minded and be widely read. And the United States Military Academy is a university.
I agree. We do need to be open-minded and we do need to be widely read. But understand that is a value system. What worldview includes the value system of being open-minded and widely read? You might say, well, Jarrin, we live in a democracy. We live in a liberal government. We have to be open-minded. Those are Christian values. Those are Christian values. See, before Christ, if you didn't worship the God of the king, if you didn't worship the king, then you were persecuted, tortured, killed, and otherwise oppressed politically. Like the history of man is political persecution if you differ on who you worship. So, if Christianity brought in this concept of open-mindedness and compassion and loving our enemy, which is what Jesus tells us to do, it's Christianity that is open-minded. It's Christianity that is well-read. Maybe not well-read. There are a lot of people who don't read the Bible. But Christianity is open-minded because that's how we engage the lost. We find those people where they are and bring them the gospel. So if every Christian, and I'm guilty of this, if every Christian were to hear a contrarian idea or an idea they didn't like and shut it down immediately, it would block the conversation between those two people. But because we love our enemies, we want to hear where they're at. And if you have the Holy Spirit and you've got wisdom and you're reading your Bible and you love that person, you don't want them to go to hell, then you will figure out, and God will help you, He will help you, figure out how to apply the gospel to the things that they're talking about. For example, critical race theory likes to talk about justice. It begs the question, by what standard do they determine something is just? We won't go there today. But understand, whenever someone is crying out for justice, they're imaging their creator. God loves justice. He cares deeply about justice. That's why He gave us Christ. Because He's going to punish people because He's judging them. He's going to give people who sin against Him justice. God loves justice. So if your sense of justice is offended, you are imaging your creator. You're made in his being. And if you care about justice, it's because you've got God's thumbprint on you. He's got his fingerprints on you because he made you. So when someone's got a sense of justice and you can't do that to me, amen. Amen. You are right that you are offended and that you value justice. Question is, what is your standard for justice? And a lot of these people, especially critical race theory, don't have the Bible or Christianity or Jesus' teaching as their standard. They've got their own thing as their standard. So when General Milley is saying we need to be open-minded, we need to be well-read, what worldview, what value system is he assuming to be true? What is he holding above all others as he's making that statement? I guarantee you, he is not holding critical race theory above all those other statements. And that's the foot in the door that these godless commies are going to exploit. They're going to exploit Christian virtue to punish Christian society, Christian culture. They're going to punish people. They're going to enslave people. They're going to addict people to your lusts and your indulgence by exploiting the goodness and virtues of your belief system. And the fruit of our founders honoring God, bending the knee, and praying to Jesus, believe in the Bible. This is how they do it. They exploit your goodness. Keep going.
And it is important that we train and we understand. And I want to understand white rage.
Okay, so he also said something about West Point. I went to West Point. I'm not there yet because he hasn't said it yet, so we're not there. White rage. Keep going, General Milley.
And I'm white, and I want to understand it.
Notice how he necessarily limits himself to being white. I am not white. I am an image bearer of God. God gave me skin that is fair. My skin is not white. It is not white. You know what white looks like? White looks like this. My skin is not white. You turn it on this side, it might be white. My skin's not white. I am not white. And black people aren't black. And red people aren't red. They are image bearers of God. He's already accepted the premise. He stepped into the worldview. And so that's going to affect as he's starting to say, I want to understand white rage. Well, why not black rage? Why not brown rage? Why not red rage? Say that 5 times fast. Why not other colors rage? Why not homosexual rage? Why not catamite rage? Why not transgender rage? Can I just arbitrarily say rage? And then why is rage a bad thing? I mean, I get it. It is. But you notice what he's doing. He's assuming that there's a credibility, there's a legitimacy to the theory. By entertaining the theory, you've at least welcomed some of the pretenses. Now, it is the symbol of a learned mind, of an educated mind to entertain an idea and look at it without accepting it. That is a good thing, and that's currently what he's talking about. But the idea, face value, white rage, for me it begs a question: why not black rage or red rage or yellow rage or anything? Why not other rages? Why are we so focused on white rage?
So what is it that caused thousands of people to assault this building and try to overturn the Constitution?
That's just factually inaccurate. Thousands of people did not assault the building. He is a military officer. Him saying that in a uniform has a loaded, it's loaded. It's powerful because he's a combat veteran. He's an Army officer. But he knows he can crack open FM 102, operational terms and graphics, and he will know that what happened on January 6th was not an assault. Those people were welcomed in. There's insider footage of it. There's a guy named Sullivan that was arrested who's a insider, an FBI informant that was doing this. There's video of the Capitol Police that are underneath the Capitol Police are under direct control of Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, and they were welcoming the people in. General Milley, in an assault, when you assault a position, do the people who occupy that position generally invite you into their position? Do they generally say, "Yeah, here's the doors open, come on in"? Is that normal, General Milley? So your language isn't very tight. But see, he doesn't really think that people at that panel are going to think like this. He doesn't think that people on that panel actually have this perspective. For him to use the word assault is not true. His characterization of what happened on January 6th is not true. And then he goes for the Trump card, no pun intended, but to overthrow the Constitution. If we're technical, the Constitution is not at the Congress. The Congress, and I've said this before, is not the center of gravity of the United States. You can literally destroy the entire Washington, D.C. area, and America will still be America. It's big. There's a lot of people. And we all got digital copies of the Constitution. Some of us have printouts of the Constitution. So we know what the Constitution says. So just because you destroy the piece of paper doesn't mean that you destroy the country. The country is, and this is a biblical idea, it's based on laws. It's the rule of law, not the rule of building, not the rule of people. So for him to say it's assault, it's just I'm hyper attuned to what he's saying, because he's doing this for an effect. He either A, believes what he's saying, or B, he's upholding a part so that the military can continue to get funding. And this begs the question, why do generals do and say the things that they do? If they care about the institution, then they're trying to protect the institution from being overly corrupted or changed too quick, too fast, because they're trying to preserve it. While at the same time, if you don't think that these guys don't have an ego and they want to put their thumbprint on stuff, I mean, you can go look up a guy named Shinseki. Shinseki, whenever he was the chairman of the army or whatnot, he said, you know what? We're going to have berets. And so for like 10 years, 15 years, the army had to wear berets, and they're stupid. They didn't breathe. They were hot. They looked dumb. People all looked like, French chefs. It was just stupid. But that guy sure did set army policy because he wanted to. Ego's part of this.
The United States of America. What caused that? I want to find that out.
Hey, General, you can look at well-known public information. What caused it was the coordination between the D.C. Capitol Police, who are under the chain of command of Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, and other insiders that were dressed up as MAGA supporters, Trump supporters, but were actually Democrats. The guy with the rebel flag, the bars and stars, they're a twin brother from New Jersey. He's a Democrat. He was not a Trump supporter.
I want to maintain an open mind here, and I do want to analyze it. It's important that we understand that, because our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Guardians, they come from the American people. So it is important that the leaders, now and in the future, do understand it.
I want to say there's a distinction here. He's making an attribution error. His comment right there was that because people in the military come from the people in the country, we have to understand what the country's talking about. But the country's not talking about this. A very few at the top are shoving this down our throats. Normal Americans, by which way the majority of people who serve in the military care about America. What political persuasion do you think most of them are from? Not to say that none of them aren't godless commies, but most of them generally care about America. They love the Constitution. They want freedom of speech and all these other things. They don't want to see America to die, which is why they raise their right hand, put on the uniform, and put themselves in harm's way to make sure that doesn't happen. So for him to say that our members of our forces are coming from the people, so it's important we understand this. That's an attribution error. We, the people, are not wanting critical race theory. We hate it. It sucks. It's dumb. So to say that is, again, he's appealing to emotion by saying this. He's appealing to the composition of the force. And then that begs the question, does everyone in the military, like what percentage of people in the military want critical race theory? Like, show me that statistics there, General. You have the ability to mandate people to fill out a survey. I wonder if you use those stars on your shoulder to make people fill out surveys and have them tell you what they actually thought about critical race theory, you'd probably get something surprising. Unless you tracked it and you put your thumb down and you tilted the scales, as all general officers are known to do, and you get the outcome that you want. Like whenever I was at Fort Hood in 2013 and we were on this panel where we were studying, how women could be integrated into combat units, into specifically the infantry. And the guy on the phone, I was in the room, guy on the phone from the Pentagon, an Obama official, said, "Hey folks, this is a foregone conclusion. It's going to happen. We just need the study to back it up." Okay. Sounds like COVID.
I've read Mao Zedong. I've read Karl Marx. I've read Lenin. That doesn't make me a communist.
This is a straw man. This is a straw man. Reading something and understanding something is different from applying it. And this is where I'll say, does he have any ideas on this Army battalion commander? Army Lieutenant Colonel of the troops. If you are a white male, you are part of the problem. See, this is not just understanding. This is integration. This is application of critical race theory. That is a man, a battalion commander, active duty, in the uniform, that said this to his soldier. Now, does General Milley have anything to say about that? Because that's not just understanding the theory, that's applying the theory. Or how about the fact that Nellis Air Force Base had its first drag show this last weekend? Right? What does he have to say about that? How does this, remember folks, what's the mission? The mission is to provide the military forces needed to deter war. Does this deter war? And protect the security of our country. Does this protect the security of our country? General Milley, these are good questions. Do you want to answer these? All right, so keep going, General Milley. Where are we at? You are right here. Okay, go.
So what is wrong with understanding, having some situational understanding about the country for which we are here to defend?
That's there's nothing wrong with having the understanding. In fact, we should if we're going to go to war against it. But if we're entertaining the idea and we're applying it as though it's the way to live, it's as though that's the code for our behavioral conduct. Those are two completely different things, General Milley. Two completely different things. One is embracing, the other is a tangential study, a survey, if you will, like someone looking at the topography of a terrain so as to know how to bombard it. That's why you read Mao Zedong. That's why you read Karl Marx. That's why you read Vladimir Lenin. You read them so that you know how to defeat them. Why did I read Mao's protracted war theory of war? So that I could recognize it and I knew what the enemy was going to do depending on what stage the enemy was in. Depending on whether it was stage 1, stage 2, or stage 3, you could very well determine what the enemy was going to be doing based upon its actions. And if the enemy was in a protracted war, which I was in Afghanistan, you could look at their conduct and say, from them doing this operation, they believe that they are doing X, Y, and Z. They are cohering to this way of insurgency, and so if they attack me with 30 dudes on the top of a mountain, it means that they're phase 2 trying to trend phase 3 in this area. Well, I know if that's the case, then there's going to be local caches. There's going to be an augmentation of foreign fighters. There's going to be more people in that area who think that they can come stand toe-to-toe with the Americans. So I got to be on point with the fight, which means that I'm going to change my patrol schedule. I'm going to change my patrol formation. I'm going to change basic combat loads. Like I'm going to carry more ammo because I need to be able to shoot more people, because if I know that Bubbas are going to be rolling 30 deep, I need to be able to smoke some folks. You know what I'm saying? Because not every bullet's going to hit, because whenever you're wearing a kit, there's a rock in your side and it's hot and you're like, got your helmet like this and everything. Sometimes it's hard to shoot jihadis in the face. But the idea is that you don't entertain these ideas to get an understanding of them. You entertain these ideas so that you understand them so you can defeat them. He's not talking about defeating them. What he's doing right now is he's straw-manning. Hey, why can't I know about this? I'm not a communist. Are you a critical race theory godless commie? Okay, keep going.
And I
the other thing on West Point. West Point, I was there. I went to school there. I graduated in 2008. Unless the curriculum has changed immensely, which it has, it's gone more critical race theory. Critical race theory at West Point is integrated into the leadership classes. Now, this is what you don't know, because unless you've been there, you don't know. When I was at West Point, they taught leadership. I remember like sitting down and we'd talk about the moral dilemmas, ethical dilemmas, like do you kill this guy? Do you not kill this guy? Do you let your guy get hurt? Do you send your guy to take the machine gun nest? All sorts of ethical, moral dilemmas. And the reason for that is to give your mind mental repetitions. That way, whenever you get in a situation, you're more effective as a combat leader. And that's good, because the more reps you do mentally means that whenever you come up to a position where you have to tell a guy to go take a machine gun, if you've thought about doing that 100 times, you don't balk at the thought, because whenever you're getting shot at, you will very likely say, I don't want that dude to die. But if that's the decision that needs to be made, you gotta go, homie. Like, sorry, bro. I'll make sure your flag is folded crisp. But the idea is that West Point teaches leadership. It has like specific leadership classes. Well, that's where they teach critical race theory at. That's for everybody. As for Mao Zedong and Lenin and Marx, the three people he mentioned, those aren't studied by everyone unless you're in a specific major. I was a military history major, so I studied Mao Zedong. But other than that, you have one class, one semester. They're teaching critical race theory all year round to all 4 classes. It's an immersion. It's an embrace of the worldview. And again, I go back to, he's not just talking about understanding. The institution that he's appealing to, West Point, has embraced it. They've integrated it. They didn't integrate Mao Zedong's protracted theory of war. They didn't integrate Karl Marx's communism. They didn't integrate Vladimir Lenin, how to start a revolution. They did not do that at West Point. They taught about it academically so as to defeat it. They're not teaching critical race theory academically. Well, Jarrin, how do you know that? You haven't been there. All my homies are teaching at West Point right now. Like all the people I went to school with, all the people I went to West Point with are West Point instructors. I got like several friends who are still at West Point teaching, and this is the kind of crap that they tell me all the time. Anyway, keep going.
I personally find it offensive that we are accusing the United States military, our general officers, our commissioned, non-commissioned officers, of being, quote, woke or something else because we're studying some theories that are out there. That was started at Harvard Law School years ago, and it proposed that there were laws in the United States, antebellum laws prior to the Civil War, that led to a power differential with African Americans that were 3/4 of a human being.
He's conflating image bearer of God with critical race theory. Understand that it was a biblical worldview that led to the abolition of slavery. It was conservatives that got rid of slavery. This is not that idea. This is literally the opposite of that idea. This is critical race theory creates slaves because it reduces you down to your skin color and it makes you enslaved to that despite what you believe. If I'm white, I'm guilty of some kind of privilege at some point. White rage. I don't know him personally. I've shaken his hand, but I don't know him personally. I don't know what he thinks. But his argument, his way of thinking, his testimony is garbage. And it's garbage for a 4-star general who spent more time in uniform than I've been alive. It's garbage for this for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who has the responsibility of overseeing the institution of defending the country. For him to have such dull and lazy thinking, to conflate things, to assume certain things are true but they're not, and for him to omit information either out of negligence or just the fact by his own admission in the first 3 seconds he needs to learn about it a little bit better. But for him to come back and start to say that he takes offense to it, sir, if you don't understand it, how can you say that you take offense? Because if you need to understand it better, maybe if you understood it better, you would recognize that when people call folks in the military woke, they're recognizing that they're starting to say things and do things that are anathema to the American way of life, that go against what the Constitution talks about. That, if you think about what your mission is, sir, if you go to what the mission is of the Department of Defense, the institution that you're in charge of, how do you provide for the military forces to deter? How does this deter war? How does this protect the security of the country? I mean, if we're going to sit here and talk about, the fact that we're offended, let's get back to first principle. You have a mission. You wear the uniform for a purpose. We pay you as taxpayers to defend us and guard our rights. You subject yourself and you give up liberty whenever you take the oath for a reason. Are you accomplishing that by this? See, what I would have said if I were there, and I wasn't because I wear the beard and I got out of the Army, what I would have said is I would have acknowledged this is a mainstream thought. It's gaining ground in our country, and it divides people. That's how I would have communicated it. Even if you want to put on Politician Jarrin would have said, this is an idea that divides people. We need to understand it to maintain the cohesion of the force. And that's what he gets at, but that's not what he's saying. What he's saying is that he takes offense when people call him woke. How many times have other people who are on the woke side have said people in the military are baby killers, or have said people in the military, do all sorts of bad stuff? I got a 10-year-old in the room. Does he have or demonstrate sufficient or adequate outrage, white rage, at all the other people who say bad things about the institution? Or just this one time because Senator Tom Cotton, the guy he's talking to, is the guy that's talking to him? That when someone with equal credentials steps up and says, you're full of crap, now he gets offended. And the way that he communicates his offense is that he puts on his shoulders the entire institution as though he's speaking for the institution. But in all actuality, this is just ego trip. It's a U.S. senator, duly elected by civilian American citizens, and military most likely, speaking about him and characterizing the nature of his leadership, which is the role of Congress. The role of Congress is to supervise and to check the military. The military obeys civilian leadership. So this is the military who's offended that the civilian leadership is saying, hey, we see stuff in your institution that sucks, and we don't like it. Talk about that, please. Well, I get offended if you do this. Okay, let's keep going because I'm on pretty long. Let's keep going.
When this country was formed. And then we had a Civil War and Emancipation Proclamation to change it. And we brought it up to the Civil Rights Act in 1964. It took another 100 years to change that. So look it, I do want to know. And I respect your service, and you and I are both Green Berets. But I want to know. And it matters to our military and the discipline and cohesion of this military. And I thank you for the opportunity to make a comment on that.
Thank you, General.
So he makes good points, understanding, open mind. He compares it to other worldviews, or other ideas, communism, Marxism, Leninism. I think that he either lacks self-awareness, which is ironic for him to say that he needs to be more self-aware of critical race theory, and for him to not be aware of critical race theory. And if that's the case, all right, then just know that we have a general that lacks the knowledge and the situational awareness of what critical race theory is. So he could be a really good killer, he could be a really good soldier, and that may be, but the guy's got his head in the sand because he don't know jack about what's going on in the culture of the United States. And if that's the case, okay, hopefully he'll wisen up and think about stuff. If it is, however, what I suspect it to be, that the political influence and pressure on him is so much that he has to navigate this so as to not seem partisan, right? I mean, and I think that's really the issue. The issue is the military can't come out right out and say that critical race theory is stupid and it's anti-American, because there's so many godless commies in America who are American who value critical race theory. That's how divided we are. And so if this is the case, and part of me feels for him in this case, the role he's trying to play is keeping everything together. Just keep the ship together. Don't rock the boat. Don't rock the boat. Don't go too far this way. Don't go too far that way. But in so doing, he's actually fulfilling like this institutional Hegelian dialect where you take America and you take critical race theory and you jam them together, and then you got a version of both. I don't want an America, and I don't want a military that defends a version of CRT. I want a military that's like, holy crap, that's communism. That's evil. That's against the Constitution. Critical race theory, what's it, Kendi and, what's the other godless commie person's name? They hate the Constitution. They say that the Constitution is a symbol of bigotry and white supremacy. So if he swears the oath of the Constitution, Article 2, Section 3, that's actually where he derives his power as a commissioned officer, he's wanting to understand something that subverts the thing that he swore an oath to. And again, if he's just trying to do it to get situational awareness, okay, roger that. But we're seeing battalion commanders that are telling their formations that if they're white, they're part of the problem. We see people who are sexually indulgent and living fornicating lifestyles overtly being celebrated at military installations. Why? The last thing I'll say as we wrap up. General Milley, why don't you try to get a better situational understanding of Christianity? Why don't we teach, if you're going to allow critical race theory to be taught as it is, why don't you allow and embrace an unfettered demonstration and teaching of the gospel of Jesus Christ? Critical race theory has a salvific component. There is redemption in critical race theory. Critical race theory teaches that if you are white, you are racist. Racism, therefore, is normative in critical race theory. That means that in every situation, there is racism. Now think about that. Critical race theory is godless commies. Godless commies believe that racism is normative, which means racism is everywhere. They say that so that they control every single area. In any situation they find themselves in, they've got a trump card. Oh, there's a racist. Okay, all right, I got you. I acknowledge that is what you're doing. You are trying to appeal to what you think is authoritative so as to influence and compel behavior. Okay, why don't we do that for the gospel? I see Jesus in everything. I see Christ. I see the working of God. I see biblical teaching and everything. Why doesn't the military embrace that? Well, Jarrin, then they have to embrace the Quran. Well, the military's got rules against adults having sex with children. But the idea is, why don't you embrace a worldview that is actually beneficial to America? Do you have situational awareness on that? Just an idea. I get worked up whenever I see stuff like this about the military because I care about the institution, because I care about the people, because I care about my country. And the institution is a far cry from where it was whenever I served. And it's a far cry from where it was whenever the Greatest Generation won the world's freedom and beat the Nazis in Tojo, Japan. I care very much about it. So it bugs me immensely to see someone with 4 stars speak so slovenly stupid about something that is so destructive to the foundation of America. And to do so with a worldview that's being exploited, quite frankly, exploited by our enemies. Our goodness is being exploited by these godless commies. And I would like to have thought that a general that is generally charged with the stewardship and leadership of the Department of Defense would have a little bit more skepticism towards an idea that is already causing civil strife. Anyway, instead he appealed to talking points based on black people getting civil rights vote, which is passed by Republicans. 13th Amendment, passed by Republicans, not one Democrat. But the whole anti-slavery movement, the whole abolition, was Christians. 1824, William Wilberforce, a Briton, a British parliamentarian, devout Christian, Bible-believing Christian, pushed for abolition. Took him like 20 years to get abolition in the UK. And they did it without a war. America fought for abolition. What was it? John Quincy Adams. John Quincy Adams was the only guy who was president and then ran for the U.S. House. He was in the U.S. House for 17 years after his presidency. And you want to know his one issue? The guy was president, Bible-believing, devout Christian, loved Jesus, preached the gospel, got out of the White House, became a member of Congress for 17 years until he died. You know what his one issue was? Abolition of slavery. In fact, do you know that one of his pallbearers was a 6'5" gentleman from the state of Illinois? Later would become the 16th president of the United States and the first Republican president, Abraham Lincoln. That's right, John Quincy Adams tutored and mentored Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln was also a Christian. Abraham Lincoln also hated slavery. So the abolition of slavery has Jesus Bible believers all running through it. You can't get away from that history. But Mark Milley, for all of his service to the country and the stars on his shoulder, doesn't have the ability to engage worldviews like the infantryman he is should. The gospel of Jesus Christ is that Jesus took the cross. He died for our sins. He was buried, and he rose 3 days later. That's the gospel. I encourage you to believe it, to trust it. It is good news. I might not like you, but I love you. Jesus Christ died for your sins so that you don't have to go to hell. But you will if you don't believe the gospel. That's not that hard. It's not hard at all. But you have to give up your pride. You have to give up your love of everything and say, Jesus is going to be top. Jesus is going to be number one. He's going to be the center. He's going to be the cause. He's going to be the driver, the motivation of everything. And people don't do it because they love their sin more than they love Jesus. And as I see an increasingly chaotic and crazy world, as I see stupid, depraved thinking that doesn't make sense, it's just like, man, I am not long for this world, man. I do not fit in here. I do not fit in with all these godless commies. These are not my people. I want them to become my people, but these ain't my people. So I'm here temporarily, folks, until God calls me home. Anyway, that's the gospel. I appreciate you. Thank you for your time. This is ad-free. This is 100% listener-sponsored. This is my job, folks. If you find any value in what you just heard, what you just listen to, whatnot, I've got Venmo and PayPal. The link is in the description. Please consider Subscribestar. $15 a month is the same that the godless commies at Netflix charge. Is this better than Netflix? If so, the link is in the description. If not, don't worry about it. I will never charge for my live streams or my Bible studies. Did a Bible study today on John chapter 9. Check it out. It's good. I always like it whenever Jesus I just love when Jesus trumps the Jews. I like it when Jesus wins. I like Revelation 19 because I like justice. Anyway, I'm Jarrin Jackson. One person said, I miss you saying I love America. I'm Jarrin Jackson. I love America. Now go to war.